This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not provide medical advice. Always consult your physician or other qualified health provider with any medical questions and never delay care because of something you hear on this podcast. Welcome to Prostate Cancer Real Talk. Did you know that 1 out of 8 U.S. men will be affected by prostate cancer? And Black men are 50% more likely to be diagnosed and twice as likely to die from it. Meet Elle and Shay, a married couple impacted by prostate cancer who have faced it, fought it, and defeated it. Join in now where we answer questions, share personal stories, and fellowship in our safe, judgment-free space. Expert guests include urologists, surgeons, researchers, counselors, nutritionists, patients with their families, and more. If you or someone you know has been impacted by prostate cancer, you've found a welcoming place for information and support. In this episode, we welcome Shannon and Tony Mekeel, a couple that has been impacted by prostate cancer. In December 2022, Tony was diagnosed with a PSA score of 26, and that's compared to the normal range of less than 4. They chose brachytherapy radiation and androgen deprivation, a hormone therapy which, like other prostate cancer treatments, affects a couple's intimacy. Tony's diagnosis and the struggle of dealing with all of life's stressors led Shannon to quit her job and author several books about her experiences in this new role. Shannon and Tony have graciously agreed to share their experiences with us today. Elle and Shay, take it away.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. And Shay and I love to welcome Shannon and Tony Mekeel to our podcast. Just a little background. The way that Shannon and I met, she actually reached out to us via our podcast, several months ago, and made us aware of some of the work that she was doing. First of all, of her personal story with she and Tony, and also some of the work that she's been doing. And, you know, it motivated her to become an author, actually, and author several books, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But we'll welcome them. Hello, Shannon and Tony.
Hi, Elle. Hi, Shay.
Hi, guys.
So, Shay, one of the things that we talked about with Shannon was the role of caretaker. And so we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, we heard the great introduction from Dennis. But Shannon and Tony, we'd like to hear from you a little bit, you know, your perspective on your background and what brought you to this point in your prostate cancer experience.
Thank you for having us on the show. We appreciate the opportunity to tell our story and potentially help other people that are going through this. I don't think we really had any understanding about what a prostate was or really why it's important or how threatening this diagnosis can be to a man's life and a couple's ability to communicate and have a loving relationship. And when we got a diagnosis, he got a diagnosis in December of 2022, probably fall. It took us some time to tell his family. We tried to go home at Christmas time and tell his family, but we couldn't find a good time. So we started telling everybody in January. So that's kind of when it became reality to us. And then we started going to appointments. Both of us are veterans. So thankfully the VA was the hospital of choice for his care. And we were able to meet some really good doctors. We were living in Florida at the time. And we spoke to a surgeon first, and he, of course, advocated to have the prostate removed. Do you want to tell me what your diagnosis was at the onset?
They couldn't do the prostate removal because I had stage T3A, so the tumor had broken through the prostate gland wall, and the concern was that it was going to spread throughout my body. And so they couldn't take the risk of removing it at that point. So that's, or at least they didn't want to.
Right.
So that's where the brachytherapy followed by the external proton high beam radiation treatments, coupled with androgen deprivation injections, came into play.
And he's one of these guys, you know, I think that most men in midlife, they're busy, they're working, and they don't go to the doctor. And he knew he needed a checkup. You know, it was kind of one of those things that I talked to him quite a bit about. But, you know, he's his own person, and I make my own appointments every year, and I get myself checked out. And, you know, I would mention, you know, it'd be great if you do it, but I wasn't going to be that nag that was going to say, go to the doctor, but maybe I should have. It actually was his dad who had a prostate cancer diagnosis, and he had some treatment done. And as soon as he found out about the rapid diagnosis in the United States and how frequent it was, he insisted that all of the sons in his family get diagnosed or get tested. And, you know, the PSA is generally, I think that they recommend around 50 people get PSA unless they have a family history. And since Tony was adopted and you didn't really know his family background, his history, you know, he should have had testing earlier. And thankfully, around age 50, he was able to have the PSA, and we caught it. And yeah, we've gotten from the very beginning, they said we were going to be able to treat this. You're not going to have to worry about dying from this. This is a very curable cancer. And that gave me a lot of like reassurance, because as soon as you hear the C word, you think that everything's over, right? But we got a lot of assurance from a lot of really smart physicians, and his sister is a nurse in the Chicago area and was able to give us some second diagnosis through some colleagues of hers, second opinions, and it worked out. It worked out really well.
Hey all, Pfizer is running a series of clinical trials called MEVPRO that are researching a potential novel targeted treatment for metastatic prostate cancer. If you or someone that you know may be interested in learning more, check out www.mevpro-studies.com. That's MEVPRO-studies.com.
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you both for your service, and we're so happy to have you. So Shannon, the one thing that we've experienced with the podcast, especially last year, we got so many emails from women wanting to know more about the caregiver. So tell the listeners about how you felt when Tony was first diagnosed, and then how did you become the caregiver for your husband?
Well, yes, thank you for asking that question, because that really is the why I'm here. After we went to the surgeon, we had an appointment at Moffitt Cancer Center, and I went with him. I try to go to all of his appointments with him because I'm a good wife and I care about him. And there's a lot of information that's shared. And I've always, you know, you see shows where people escort, you know, TV shows where you've got a friend that goes with you, because the patient just is so blown away with their threat of their own mortality, and they can't really ask the questions they need to be asking. And so that's where the caregiver kind of started, was me kind of going to these appointments and trying to help him navigate the medical industry, because he really didn't have much experience going to the doctor because he was always pretty healthy. So went to the appointments together, got a lot of information from doctors, and talked about what we wanted to do as a couple. You know, we could have I think that our choices that we made at the time were well-educated choices. There's some treatments available for this disease, and you know, they're not easy choices to make.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's issues with, will I be able to make love to my husband again?
Yeah.
Will he have to wear a diaper for the rest of his life? I mean, that didn't make any sense. Like, we thought, well, we're not doing that. But this androgen deprivation therapy was kind of passed off by our urologist at Moffitt as something that was going to be easy, and it has not been easy. And when we left that appointment, they said, you know, enjoy the roller coaster of androgen deprivation therapy.
Wow.
They actually said that to you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so before we go on, let's let the listeners know what androgen deprivation therapy is. What is it?
So it's an injection. There's a couple different variations of it. You get it in your stomach. It's extended release. You can do a 3-month version or a 6-month version. I did a 6-month version of it. So every 6 months I was getting an injection. Time releases throughout the 6 months. Essentially what it does is it sends a signal to the part of your brain where your libido's at, and it cuts that signal. And then it also suppresses your testosterone. So essentially you become a chemically castrated male.
Okay.
And with that, and we should add that the biggest side effect of it's Lupron, right? That's what you're on.
Lupron.
The biggest thing that
Eligard.
Eligard.
Same thing, yeah.
The biggest problem with that, I mean, there's all kinds of emotional and weird things that happen because of those side effects. But one of the largest physical side effects we found was something we called menopause hot flashes, and it was constant. There was days that it was just one after another after another. So it really took the wind out of his sails. And then I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So yeah, it was tough.
So this is the first time I think that we've spoken with a gentleman who's actually gone through the androgen deprivation therapy. So Tony, what did it make you feel like? Did it affect your mood, your communication? Did you become a real nice guy, or did you, or the opposite? I mean, what effect did it have on you? And we'll get Shannon's opinion as well. But what kind of guy did it make you become?
It didn't. It destroyed me emotionally, mentally, and physically. I had short-term memory loss, cognitive thinking issues, massive depression, made my bones hurt, massive amount of hot flashes. I'm still discovering side effects to this day. I just discovered one of the side effects that I've recently figured out too. One is it shot my cholesterol through the roof.
Wow.
So it makes you susceptible to heart disease. And 2, it shot my glycemic index through the roof and almost made me a type 2 diabetic, among other things. They found fat in my bone marrow. It's evil. It's a hindsight. I would have never done it, and I'll never put it in my body again.
And we don't recommend it to people. There's a lot of other things that you can do besides this treatment.
Okay.
So that's what I was going to say, Shannon. So is there like an alternative? Like if you guys didn't do the ADT back then, was there like another option? Because you have just done radiation. Since the urologists sound like they didn't want to do the surgery, was radiation then an option?
Well, I had radiation on top of after the brachytherapy surgery. I had 10 days off, and then I had 28 sessions of high beam external proton radiation, which they burned up my insides and did a lot of damage.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry about this story to hear this. So what, Shannon, so when you say like there are other options, like what would you, in hindsight, what do you think you guys' decision would have been back then, knowing what you know now?
I don't think androgen deprivation therapy would have been what we would have done, knowing what it would do to him. The side effects are just so bad, and it was so hard on our marriage. And I think there's been a lot of people that we've spoken to who have done alternative therapies. There's a lot of fasting works really well to rid the body of cancer cells. What else?
There's, I probably just would have done more research.
Yep.
Hindsight. They're coming out with different things every day. They're using sound waves. University of Michigan and University of Stanford medical centers are using sound waves to blow up tumors now. They're certain frequency will blow up a tumor. You meet with doctors and you kind of trust, and the second opinion I got was the same as the first. So that's kind of why we did that three-pronged treatment, because we thought it was, going to be the best course of action. But you're talking about doctors that have been doing, that course of action for 20 years. So, they're sort of stuck in that mindset. Maybe they don't necessarily tune into a lot of the new, quote unquote, alternative ways to combat this. I would have done more research for sure.
Every cancer patient wants to just get it out of them. But this is one of the times that we should have just waited a little bit longer and done the research.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's kind of the fear they instill when they find a tumor. It's like, okay, you found a tumor, we got to get it out of you before it spreads to the rest of your body.
Mhm.
So it's.
Well, that was going to be one of the next questions that I asked you, Tony, and that is, I know how I felt when, thank God I was going regularly for my PSA screenings, and my diagnosis was very, very early. As a matter of fact, my surgeon said that during the surgery, he felt that the cancer cells were just getting ready to leave the prostate. And so I was a candidate for surgery because one of the reasons why I was a candidate is because the cancer itself was confined to the prostate.
Right.
And what I understand, what you're verifying, Tony, is that once the cancer has metastasized and left the prostate, you're no longer a candidate for surgery. So, they try other things, and the ADT was something that they did for you. So, Shannon, as a wife and a caregiver, tell us about your initial response to the news. That how did the information get transferred? How did you find out from Tony that he was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and then what happened in your house? Because I know you guys have kids, and so what happened in the house once that Tony come home and told you that, and then did you tell the kids? Did you wait? What happened within your family?
Gosh, that seems like decades ago. It's been like not even 3 years, but
October 17th, 2022.
Yeah.
That's when I knew. That's when I logged into my VA portal and saw the results of the blood test and saw the PSA score. And I just knew it immediately. Obviously, then we had to schedule biopsies and MRIs and CT scans and all the other PET scans and everything else to confirm. But that's when I knew.
And how long after that did you tell Shannon and then the rest of the family? Just tell us the story of what happened in that house.
I think I knew immediately.
I told her immediately.
Yeah.
I don't know if we told the boys.
We might have waited a little while. We have adults at that point. We had a 17-year-old, maybe an 18-year-old at home. He was getting ready to graduate high school. And then our middle son was still living with us, and he was like 22 at the time. And then our oldest was living in Boston when we got the diagnosis. And, we had to get on FaceTime and tell our kid, and that was tough. And we wanted to make sure that when we told people, though, we had a plan in place, because we didn't want to freak people out, and we didn't want to have to be like, oh, we don't know what's going on. And we wanted to have a plan. And so we kind of had that information before we kind of let the cat out of the bag. And
Yeah.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video to keep seeing more content like this from us. It will also benefit YouTube's algorithm, helping to introduce our content to others who may need it most.
So yeah, I understand, because he was diagnosed during COVID. And unfortunately, my sister lost her husband to COVID. So to be honest, I wouldn't have told my family probably for a while. And the only reason that I had to tell my sister was the time that Elle was scheduled for surgery was like 2 days before her husband's funeral. So I had to kind of explain to her that, we're going to attend the funeral, but we have to get back to Chicago because she lives in a different state. And I felt horrible because I wanted to be there for her, but we had to come back. And 2 days after that, Elle was due for prostate cancer surgery. So, but if it had not been for her husband passing, honestly, I probably wouldn't have told my family for a while. I think part of it was too, because Elle was diagnosed so early on, and I knew it wasn't, well, I had, a feeling, and I felt safe in knowing that it wasn't so severe based on what the doctors had told us and what the biopsy showed. So I'm like, he's going to be okay. I don't want to stress anyone out. So honestly, I wasn't going to tell anyone.
Shannon, you were talking about, the kind of after surgery experience and telling the kids and stuff. How did they respond to that?
I mean, they were upset. Yeah. But throughout that first year when treatment started to happen, I think that they saw the change in us, and our two kids that were still at home, I think that it impacted them because our relationship changed, and he was not the same person, and we were all worried about him. And
explain a little bit. Okay, when you say he wasn't the same person, what do you mean?
Example, after androgen deprivation therapy started, I was working in my office, and he had his office set up in our dining room. And if I had a really busy day and I might not come out of the office, to get food until maybe 1 or 2 o'clock, I would come out and he'd be white as a ghost, and he'd be working, and I could tell that he was lethargic and not doing well. And I would get mad. I'd be like, you've got to be advocating for yourself. I understand you're busy at work, but you've got to eat. And if you're tired, you need to take some time to lay down. And thankfully, he was working from home, and his employer was really good about giving him that grace to do that. But that doesn't mean he wasn't working. And that doesn't mean that he should have been working, especially if he was, a 2. And we realized really quickly that he would just say, I feel fine. And I'd be like, you're lying. How do you really feel? And be like, well, he's like, I feel like crap. And I was, I'm like, oh, I need to know that because I need to help take care of you. And I had a really hard time with the caregiver label, to be fair, because I always thought caregivers were the people that took care of sick people. And my husband wasn't sick. He was going through something that was affecting our ability to communicate. That was probably what I thought is the thing that was the hardest. And, there were some times where he would come home from the doctor, maybe he had a catheter in, or he was, he had a procedure done. It was really challenging. And then I felt like a caregiver, and I hated that feeling because we had just gotten married. We'd only been married about 18 months, and we'd been together 8 years prior to that. But when you say in sickness and in health, you got to mean that. And I did mean it. But it really was a roller coaster. It took us for a ride that we were not prepared to go on. And I started doing some research about this problem in our culture. And there's a lot of people that are in Gen X that are just workaholics. And I think that perpetuates cancer. Stress and prostate cancer are related with diagnosis. But I just felt like we could have been warned, we could have had more information. We could have had a social worker assigned. We did find a great therapist who was good at couples therapy, and that helped a lot. And I am a journalist. That was my first job I ever loved. I started as a journalist at 15. I worked as an intern. I just thought, you know what, we're going through something that nobody seems to really know about, and I'm going to write it down. And so as we were going through this, I started texting him, and sometimes he didn't understand what I was saying. And so I would email him these longer letters through my Gmail account. And those eventually turned into You Have Arrived, which was my first book.
The study medicine in the MEVPRO clinical trials is designed to block the abnormal EZH2 activity in cells. With the study medicine's help, The abnormal EZH2 no longer promotes cell growth, and the flow of traffic returns to its normal state, and tumor growth is delayed or prevented. The goal of the MEVPRO clinical trials is to determine whether this study medicine, taken as tablets by mouth, is safe and effective. During these clinical trials, you will have regular visits to the study site, and your health and cancer will be closely monitored by medical professionals. You may experience side effects from the study medicine, such as diarrhea and fatigue. More information will be provided during the informed consent process.
Tune in next week for prostate cancer, how support groups, therapy, and journaling helped us with Shannon and Tony Mekeel. To find out more information on the guest you just heard or previous guests and a list of Prostate Cancer Real Talk episodes, visit our website, prostatecancerrealtalk.com. And if you have a question, comment, or if you would like to share your story, send Elle and Shay an email, ellandshay@prostatecancerrealtalk.com. That's L-E-L and Shay, S-H-A-Y, @prostatecancerrealtalk.com.